Alright guys, welcome back. We're going to do part 2 today with institutions. Most of you are probably waiting for the last minute to do these, but hopefully you haven't. This one should go a bit quicker. I'm hoping at least. I won't ramble on as much as I tend to ramble now. So today we're going to look at institutions, and this begins with a quote from Chinua Achebe. The trouble of Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There's nothing basically wrong with the Nigerian character. There's nothing wrong with the Nigerian land, or climate, or water, or air, or anything else. Chinua Achebe is the grandfather of literature for Africa, so he's been called by many people, many sources. He wrote Things Fall Apart, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Thank you, Mrs. Clark, for making me read that back in high school, and then I read it about 4 more times in college. But let's begin with institutions. So we're going to begin with the basics. It's a fragile democracy. It's a federal system in theory. It has a territory. The nation is divided into 36 federal states plus the federal capital area, Abuja. It is a presidential system. Remember, it originally starts a parliamentary system, but has shifted over time into a presidential system of bicameral legislature with a House of Representatives and a Senate. However, currently neither really checks or balances operates through the government. State and local governments are totally dependent on the central government. Also, as we'll get into, there's a huge patronage system in Nigeria. But the one time that the government actually did put a check and balance was when Obasanjo, who was president, the first president of Nigeria, wanted to run for a 3rd term. They successfully stopped the constitutional changes to prevent him from running for that 3rd term. So there are some checks, there are some balances, but not many. So the executive is the president and the cabinet. The president is directly elected for a 4-year term. They have a 2-year term limit. Sorry, a 2-term limit, not 4-year term, 2-term limit. They use a 2-round majority model. So candidates must win a majority of the vote, so they have to get 50% plus 1 of the vote cast, and then they have to win at least 95% of the votes cast in 2/3 of the Nigeria states, okay? So they don't want a totally regional candidate becoming president, so this is why they do include that 25% requirement in 2/3 of the states. And here we do see, though, Buhari's map is clearly a clear majority in most states, anyways, more so than that 25%. However, if no candidate wins a majority in the first round, second round pits the top 2 most popular vote winners against each other. So if you look at the 2015 results, which should be popping up soon for you. There we go. I don't know why it's making me click so many times, but it did. So we see that Buhari clearly won the 50% plus 1, and then Goodluck Jonathan took 2nd place. Goodluck Jonathan in this election was the incumbent candidate, and so this will mark the first time, this election marked the first time in Nigeria's history that an incumbent elected president will peacefully transfer power to an elected leader of the opposition. So, there's that. So this leads us to a discussion question, which I'm going to make you answer real quick. Why do you think Nigeria has this requirement of winning at least 25% of the votes cast in 2/3 of the Nigeria states to move into the 2nd round? So now that you've paused and thought about that, let's look at that. So it's because, first off, it's a 1999 constitutional requirement. It's part of the Constitution that this needs to occur. Also, it's to prevent a purely regional candidate from winning the presidency. We talked about how there's 3 really diverse regions in Nigeria. They want to prevent one of those groups from just having a total monopoly just based on population. And this is their way of helping to attempt to unify and help the people in the country. So, the current executive is President Muhammad Buhari, is pictured here. He may appoint officials to all parts of the national government without the approval of the legislature, so he has that full autonomy. He receives all government oil and distributes some to the states as directed by law. He commands the armed forces, and he can veto laws that are passed by the legislature as well. So those are some of his powers that he has. He's also the top of the food chain with the patronage or patron-client system within Nigeria, which I know I've been using him a lot, but until a woman becomes president of Nigeria, I will keep on using him. So, It's making me click an awful lot to get to these slides. I don't know why. So President Buhari is the president. He is 72 years old. He's a Muslim and a former military dictator. We've talked about this in our past where there's been four democratically elected presidents in Nigeria, two of which were former military dictators. So this began with Obasanjo, and then we had two who weren't, and now Buhari has went back to that pathway. So let's talk about the bureaucracy within Nigeria. It's assumed to be bloated, corrupt, and inefficient. Parastatals, which we talked about with Mexico, they're privately owned but headed by government appointees. They're part of this patriot-clan network. They provide public utilities of major industries, water, electricity, etc. Part of the state corporatism system that served to give the appearance of public-private cooperation while really giving state control. One of these groups that they were talking about originally were the Nigerian Electric Power Administration, the NEPA, which jokingly became known as the Never Expect Power Again organization by the Nigerian people. So they changed their name to the Power Holding Company, which that got changed to Please Hold Candle by the Nigerians as well. So they're not the most effective systems within Nigeria. The legislature was parliamentary until 1979. Now it's a bicameral National Assembly. There is a Senate and a House of Representatives. The Senate contains 109 senators. There's 3 per each state in Nigeria, and then 1 from the Federal District of Abuja. Also, they are very diverse given their different regions that are equally represented. House of Representatives, on the other hand, is 360 members. It is one of the world's lowest rates of female representation in legislature in the world. There are only 20 women in the House, and there's only 7 women in the Senate in Nigeria. They typically have very little power, but they do occasionally act as a check on the president, like when Obasanjo wanted his third term. We talked about this earlier. The legislative branch prevented that from occurring. The judiciary branch used to be pretty strong. There's a federal and state court system with an appeals process up to the Supreme Court. After independence, that's when they were the strongest. They were strong and autonomous, but since then they've been ravaged by military rule. Most judges today are not well versed in law and are easily manipulated by the government. Theoretically in charge of judicial review because they have to make sure that laws are constitutional, but not practically. Law is a combination of common law and customary law, which only is more complicated by the fact that Sharia law operates in 12 northern states as well. The military is strong. It is the one thing, though, that does unite the country of Nigeria. And there is no really tension within the military. They are all treated as one. The military made a distinction between military and government and military and barracks. Military and government are presidents like Babangida, who had to restrain influence of the traditional military. They're appointed senior military to cabinet positions to make them part of his patronage work. Whereas the military and barracks are like your traditional soldiers. This is the best place for young Nigerians to improve their lives and demonstrate their talents. The best and the brightest do join the military. The members do come from all over Nigeria. Like I said earlier, it's the one thing that unites the nation. However, it's controversial, but it is one of the national institutions with the capability of restoring order, even though some in Nigeria lost faith in the military with the rise of Boko Haram. So let's look at Lincoln's institutions now within Nigeria. They are regionally and ethnically based, primarily. They're a fragmented multi-party system. Unlike Mexico with the PRI, here we see many parties forming, and that led to some instability within Nigeria. Parties appear and disappear based on their leaders. They usually have a strong charismatic leader to begin with. The 2 most recent parties have been the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, which has been the most long-lasting. That's the party of Obasanjo and Goodluck Jonathan, who was the previous president. They were a coalition of northern Yoruba politicians currently in former military leaders, and small ethnic groups in the middle of the country. The thing with this, guys, was that the PDP originally started in the north, but to gain power, worked with southern candidates to gain more legitimacy. The All Progressives Congress in 2013 was a formation of 3 opposition parties who kind of merged together to challenge them in 2015. This included the All Nigeria People's Party, the ANPP, which is General Muhammad Buhari's party, who is our current president. So there's that. Also, these parties are becoming less regional. They are increasingly running as a takeover of candidates from different regions, campaigning across all of Nigeria. So the question is, why? Why is this? And that's because of the 1999 constitutional requirement that requires you to be gaining votes from across the country, not just in one region. So if you look at interest groups they have, they continue to play a role in Nigerian politics. Some are based on religion, such as the Christian Association of Nigeria. Several Muslim organizations exist. Some are based on professions of the educated elite, such as legal professions, physicians, educators. Labor unions were independent and powerful before the military oppression in the 1980s, so they had a strong foundation. They have regained some of their power in recent years, including when the Nigerian Labor Congress organized a strike in 2007 against the elimination of gas subsidies. That's subsidies down at the bottom here, which you probably can't see, but is gas subsidies is what they led the strike against. And last but not least is the media. They have a well-developed independent press that reflects ethnic and interest groups throughout Nigeria. TVs and newspapers are more common in the urban areas, where parastatals do operate over 100 stations. There's also privately owned TV stations, cable, satellite services in Nigeria. Radio reaches all of Nigeria. All 36 states have their own, and they compete with private broadcasters. State radio is broadcast in the local language of the state as well. Cell phone services has overtaken the landline with 95 million cell phones compared to 700,000 wired phones. So that's part to do with the structure, the infrastructure in Nigeria. And finally, in 2009, there was 44 million internet hosts, or internet users, but only 1,200 internet hosts. So that leads to some issues with their internet system. But that is where we are going to conclude today. I got us about 2 minutes shorter, so I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.